What up? This is Patrick Hayes. I'm here with my buddy Gabe Salomon.
Yo.
And he just popped over to hang out down here in Sedona, and we just got the inspiration to turn the camera on.
Yeah.
Because there's so much happening in the world today with all the ET disclosure going on, and we're working on some amazing music projects we're going to be releasing that really tie into the connection to the ETs. And
just the new Earth in general.
New Earth in general.
Higher vibrational ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so much transformation happening and so much stuff, I mean, as we know, that's going on where all these things are being disclosed, and not just in the ET world, but just in the world of corruption and all these different things with the media. So we were talking about the importance of the role of people like us and people like you, and how we can be more efficient in our ability to and it's not to steer necessarily the direction of humanity so much as I think it is to just put options out there for people to choose what's most in alignment with them, so that they have at least enough doorways open to make a decision that's in alignment with their heart.
All right. Yeah, so there's a big movement, of course, that we can all see in the sort of mainstream world to sort of shepherd people into believing and thinking in a certain way. And it's really I see it as our responsibility as individuals that are wanting to develop spiritually to become an example of an alternative option. And that's the main component of all of this as to how we can affect change is the first and foremost thing to understand is that it's a vibrational teaching. It's a teaching through your state of being. You know, it's the energy that you emanate, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be verbal or shown. It's just that embodiment. So that's really the first component.
Absolutely.
You know,
it's like vibration is law.
Yeah,
and it's this idea that oftentimes the only way that you really can communicate with somebody is through vibration, especially when you're dealing with people that have really strong belief systems that are impenetrable. But vibrationally actually is the loudest way that you can communicate. Funny enough, you know, and oftentimes it's a state of being transmission. It's just a transmission of being in the right kind of vibration to open a doorway energetically, and people can have breakthroughs right in front of you that literally it's them having their own breakthrough, and you're just basically holding space for the breakthrough.
Right. And I think that, I see that happening in my sessions, and I'm sure that you see that happening in your sessions all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's not like a holier than thou sort of thing. It's just literally that when you're holding a certain vibration and people allow themselves to match that vibration, spontaneous insight and realization can happen for them because it's a space that's being held. So really that is the first, and foremost important thing to understand. And then there's that level of taking action, right? There's a level of, okay, I've been doing the energetic work. I've been going through the process of healing. Now, how do I actually physicalize that? How do I put that energy out in a package or in a context that people can gravitate towards and actually synchronize with?
Yeah, and it's playing with when you get to that sort of presentation form, then you're moving beyond just vibration, but vibration is it's still the actual source and core of everything. But then you start playing in realms of concepts and realms of images.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes more of a chess game for understanding when you put a certain image or or you speak in a certain way or use certain terminology, that it's going to incite certain kinds of feelings and emotions in other people. So it's good to have an understanding of where they're coming from and how they'll respond to it, and use that in a calculated way. But ultimately, it's the vibration underneath it. In other words, you can't put good information out without a good vibe and expect it to have a good result. It's like it really comes back to the space that you're coming from, and that's ultimately what's driving everything. And you actually see some really powerful magicians and beautiful magicians that will do things that are very edgy or very unorthodox from the right vibration, even taking on archetypes that look as if they are maybe even evil or sinister or dark or bad.
Right.
And those are some harsh words. It's not always like that, but there is a way that I see certain people that are like, they're like systems busters, or they're like collapsers of old cycles. And I've done this in my own way at times also, where they take on a particular role to shatter something, and they come off in a way that maybe to the average person, based off of our like checklist in our head of like what is appropriate or what isn't appropriate, may deem this person as like disrespectful, or like I don't know, chauvinistic, or like whatever it is, all these different names. But actually, it's still coming from a place of love, or it's still coming from a higher vibrational place. But that's just, there are no limits to love, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do may not look like textbook loving.
Right.
But that's a higher kind of expression that that only can come from an ability to surrender to the truth of your heart and what is right, and not judge it in any way, so that you actually find yourself following through, and sometimes doing things that are a bit like edgy or raunchy. Right. And but it's the right thing, and you can feel that, so you trust it and do it anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So it really is. When it comes to sharing things in a physical sense, or bringing information into the physical world, it really is about tuning into the vibration that is in alignment for you, and trusting that the physical representation of what you're sharing will be the right thing, regardless of what that looks like. So this is a kind of this is a more subtle way of understanding service, and understanding this sort of way, this sort of a process of alignment and then expression, alignment and then action. So really it's what is that alignment telling you in this moment? What is coming through for you in terms of your guidance, and how do you want to physicalize that? Because it's so, you'll start to find after a period of time that like, it's not so much about what exactly you're doing. It is, as Patrick said, all about the vibration that you're coming from. Though, if you want suggestions on things that you can share, it's simpler than you may think. Sometimes it's just sharing a Facebook status that is inspiring. Sometimes it's just sharing a video that you feel is of benefit to humanity. Sometimes it's, if you're an artist, creating art that physicalizes a higher dimensional experience, or something that inspires you. Or if you're a musician, putting that into your music. If you're a writer, writing about these things. So it's, what is your unique expression, and trusting that that unique expression is the the carrier wave of the vibration of service that you can offer to the planet. And as you go through that process, you find that what it is that you're expressing will expand and grow, and the more that you go with that process, the more insight comes to you, and the more that it can sort of take on a form that might be unexpected, but is more of a fully realized version of that initial inspiration.
Absolutely. And it's like the more high vibration that's uploaded to the collective, the more the whole collective is able to receive that and integrate that. And the more authentic the expression of whatever your inspiration is, the clearer and the stronger of a signal of that high vibration it is that you are actually bringing into the collective, right? So it's trusting yourself, getting out of the way, and just letting it move. Now, some of the things that I think are important, or that can be really helpful for, is like, what can you do in order to say, keep yourself aligned with the kind of authentic expressions that you maybe feel inspired to share, is the idea of ritual. And I use the term ritual in my own life, or how I mean it for my own life, are what are those things that when I do them, they bring me back into a sense of right relationship with myself. Like, yes, this feels good. Not like just that idea sounds good, but like there's this rightness. I think you could probably, most people can relate to this feeling of like, when something happens, whether it's a perception that you have of something, or you have an inspiration to do something, and there's just no doubt, you just feel like, there's this yes. It's a full-on yes. It's not a maybe that's a good strategic idea. It's just a yes. Now that yes, that rightness, This oftentimes, being able to get into that kind of relationship with yourself can be instigated through different activities. Something that I know we both share in bringing us into that kind of space is music. So we use music, and music does this thing that it almost like calibrates or reorganizes my energy field. And I'm probably sure it's the same for you. To where then after the meditation process of working with music, I come out with a clarity where I can identify yes or no very clearly.
Right.
Like, yes, I should do this, or no. Meditation is really big. Exercise is huge for people.
Yeah.
And these are obvious things, but I don't think people understand necessarily like how crucial it is to have some sort of thing that brings you back into that center space on a regular basis. Because what we have right now is we have a world filled with currents. There's currents in all sorts of different media and all sorts of different people around us, and there's energies being projected towards us that if we take that energy on and we move down that current, it takes us out of ourself. And sometimes we'll get hit with so many things all at once that next thing we know, we're going down this path that is not us. And if we don't have something that's regularly bringing us back into that center space, who knows, 2 months could disappear and you're on a completely different trajectory than you ever would have been on, because you got on some weird trip just because you've been influenced by so many different things in your reality. So it's like, how do you become that force that knocks you back into your center and do that on a regular basis?
Right. And it is a practice in that sense, because the more that you do that, the more that you utilize those tools to bring you back into your center, the more efficient that you get at it. So where then you really start to operate in a very refined vibration, to where you know almost immediately when you're not in alignment with yourself, and you can know almost immediately how to bring yourself back into alignment. And in the process of out of alignment to back into alignment, it becomes much quicker. And you don't necessarily need, for example, I remember like one of the things when many years ago when I was first kind of practicing alignment and meditation and spirituality, in the sense, it's like I would feel like I would need to go on a very like lengthy 2-hour walk, just so by the end of that walk I can kind of feel a little bit clearer. And sometimes I would feel clear and sometimes I really wouldn't. And now it's really sometimes just a matter of like, you know, say
a deep breath.
It's just a deep breath. Say I'm washing the dishes and there's something in that process that I'm like, this isn't right. Sometimes just stepping away from that thing that I'm doing after about 10-15 seconds, it's like, okay, no, I'm good. And like the faster that you can identify when you're not in alignment, the faster you can identify how to bring yourself back into alignment.
Absolutely.
So and that really, you have to implement these things into your life in order to see those results. And that's something that happens over time. It can't be rushed.
In my experience, there's 3 primary stages for what Gabe's talking about right here. There's resilience, then there's robustness, and then there's transformative or alchemical. So resilience, the game is when you realize you're off, how quick can you get back on? Right? So don't ever make the mistake, and this is a common mistake, that when you get knocked off, that you beat yourself up over getting knocked off. You're like, oh, I'm out of it, and I was doing so well in it, and that just like keeps you further and further. So it's the second you realize you're off, how quick can you get back? That's the game. So the game is let go of whatever weight, and don't beat yourself up or don't get frustrated. Let go of whatever that is. Get back as quick as you can, and that's resilience, right? Then after resilience really starts to set into where you can do it really, really quickly, then you start developing what's called robustness. And robustness is that then when things come to knock you off, they don't knock you off as much. You're kind of like steady with it, right? You're more robust, because the process of being resilient, of kind of getting knocked off and then coming back, becomes almost like an automatic thing. It's like a martial arts move. It's like the block just happens and you don't go off as much.
Right.
Then, though, eventually, you can move into transformative or alchemical. And this is when something is coming in your direction that is starting to push you off course, you actually can notice that and then transform it and then alchemize it into a boost further into the right direction. And so this is where, someone comes into the situation and they're starting an argument, and then you turn the argument into like a hysterical laughing fit. Or it's, some sort of situation where some negative thing happens in your life. You get in a car wreck, but you stay so optimistic about the whole thing that you realize the person you got in the car wreck from, actually you have a lot in common with, and you see this blessing, because there are always blessings there. And then maybe you make this contact with this person, and then you become great friends with them. Maybe it's your wife. Maybe you actually got in a car wreck with your future wife or something, right? And so it becomes alchemical at the later stages, where you can transform it actually in the moment where it was knocking you off.
Yeah, and this is the whole thing. So really, it's ultimately, if we're talking about ways in which to help shepherd consciousness, or ways to sort of hold the door open for others, it really comes back down to that practice of alignment. That's like the engine of this whole operation, and it's important. It's so important to understand that, because, as was stated before, it's like the more you practice that, the more that everything that you do becomes a service to others. The more selfless you become, the more humbled you become, the less sort of corrupted you can be by forms of vanity, or like, you want to be the best or the biggest and the baddest, sort of like those ideas. So practicing alignment and then expressing that is the ultimate service. And as you serve, the more your inspiration will just be to serve. And so it's a perpetual cycle that continues to feed you.
And the service, it really becomes like to do for others is doing for self.
Yeah.
Because the service, the reward is in the vibration that you're in. It feels so good that you wouldn't want to do anything else. And that's why, and so it's getting out of this idea of like, I need this or I need that. And it's actually getting into like a resonance of what feels good in our body.
Right.
See, so many of us, as young children, we kind of get knocked out of our feeling essence of what's feeling right, and get caught in these constructs of ideas. And we'll say like, oh, we need to do this because this makes me feel okay in like the mental realm, or because it looks organized there. But then we're ignoring the fact that there's this uneasiness associated with that behavior inside of our energetic field. So it's like coming back into the energetic field and letting that actually guide. And so when you let that guide, you realize that you come into this like super balance that feels amazing within yourself. And then when you act from that space, you find yourself doing things in service. That's just, it's where it takes you.
Right.
So then you're actually doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for others. And to give and receive becomes the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like that's like the complete transmission of what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it came through well.
Yeah.
Cool. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Gabe Salomon. He just had he just released a video on Gaia TV. Yeah. So if you haven't checked out his episode on extra dimensionals on Gaia TV, go ahead and check that out there. And then do you have any online handles that you want to?
Yeah, just my website, gabesalomon.com. My music project is The New Human. My clothing store business is aliensymbology.com. I also sense that a lot of people that will probably be watching this be familiar with my videos, but if not,
probably.
then the links will be in the description.
Definitely. Also, and stay tuned. Keep your eyes and ears open for the music projects that we have coming forward. We got a lot coming down the pipe, and we will be sprinkling you with some previews soon. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace. Much love.